Big story we'll be watching coming up tomorrow when Bryan Kohberger is set to come face-to-face with his victims' families at his sentencing hearing after pleading guilty to the 2022 murders of 4 University of Idaho students. He is expected to receive 4 consecutive life sentences for the heinous crime. Let's bring in Nancy Grace, the host of Crime Stories with Nancy Grace on Fox Nation. Nancy, great to see you. It has been a minute. Good to have you back with us.
Nice to see you, and I wish it was under better circumstances because I believe that the plea is a travesty.
Yeah.
At least half of the parents, if not more, of these victims did not want this plea. And as they are preparing to go to court tomorrow to face their child's killer, they still don't know the facts, and they never will. Now, I know that President Trump, and I understand why he did it, I feel the same way, is saying, Judge Hippler, make him explain why he did it. But under the plea deal, Kohberger doesn't have to speak. He has an opportunity to allocute or speak.
Yeah.
What?
I was going to say, I've known you for an awfully long time, and the one thing I've known about you is that you are always interested in the why, the pathology of this case. But as you point out, President Trump has said that the judge should probably ask Kohberger to explain why he did it. We don't know if the judge will do it. So the families of these victims and the public may never know why he took the lives of those 4 innocent young people.
I know where Trump's coming from. I get it. I want to know. Now, it took me about 5 years prosecuting nothing but violent felonies, and I would look over at the defendant in court, usually if the jury wasn't watching me, and think, why would you leave such a wake of pain behind you? Why? The state isn't required to prove motive, right? Finally, after about 5 years of doing this day after day after day, I decided, why ask why? He did it. That's what I need to know. But in this case, it's really hard to grapple with these facts of a stranger on stranger quadruple murder so meticulously planned. But I can tell you this much. Even if Trump got his way, and if I got my way, and we tried to make Kohberger allocute or speak, which we cannot force him to violate his right to remain silent, he would lie. Seriously? Do you really think he's going to stand up in front of the parents and say, look, I had a freaky porn fetish where I raped young college girls that were asleep or drugged or tied up or passed out? You think he's going to say that? No, he would lie. That I would be willing to bet everything I have ever owned. He would lie about his motivation. So,
I just wanted to put up on the screen what President Trump said in part in his Truth Social post. He said, before sentencing, I hope the judge makes Kohberger at a minimum explain why he did these horrible murders. There are no explanations. There was no nothing. People were shocked that he was able to plea bargain, but the judge should make him explain what happened. The family of Kayla Gonsalves posted on Facebook that they were very appreciative of having the president's support. They wrote, quote, I definitely do not want to get into politics at all, so I hesitated even posting this, but wow, absolutely shocked. Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, Ethan, you have always mattered so much. You are so loved, and your nature, your light, your entire being is so bright and visible. You guys did this. You guys deserve every last ounce of recognition for this. There's going to be victim impact statements. The judge has set aside all day for that. What do you expect we're going to hear tomorrow?
Well, just hearing that statement that was just posted, to me, is heartbreaking. To think that all they have left now is to advocate for their child at a murder sentencing. I expect, for number one, Gonsalves to be very, very upset. He's been very vocal from the beginning, and I don't blame him. And it heartens me that anybody in our government, much less the president, for Pete's sake, cares about this case. I wish what Trump wanted, in this case anyway, could be true, but we are not going to be able to make Kohberger speak and violate his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. And if he did speak, he would lie. That said, what's going to happen? Number one, the defendant will plead guilty. He will have a right to speak in court. Will he? When you don't know a horse, look at his track record. He sat there motionless, emotionless throughout all the proceedings. That's what I expect tomorrow. No flicker of emotion whatsoever. And you know what that tells me? That's probably the way he was the night he murdered these 4 beautiful University of Idaho students. Not a flicker of emotion. And I just want to point out one thing. According to Gonsalves, they're going into this fight blind, by the way, because they don't know the truth, because there's not a trial. I don't know how they can even prepare to speak tomorrow, the victim impact statements, because they don't know the whole truth. That said, he has reported that he has learned that his daughter's mouth had been bruised or reddened to suggest she was quieted during her murder. Now, think about that. That's what the parents are thinking about as they go into this courtroom and look at a guy with absolutely no emotions. That's what's going to happen tomorrow. Kohberger's not going to speak, and the families are going to get their hearts broken all over again, and this ain't justice.
It's going to be a tough day. No question about that. Nancy, good to see you. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.